Righteous Felon Craft Jerky is the official jerky of Belly Up Sports. For over a decade, Righteous Felon Craft Jerky has led the American meat snack revolution by concocting delicious, adventurous, U.S.-sourced jerky recipes for uncompromising carnivores across the country. With 15 different flavors to choose from, Righteous Felon has all jerky lovers covered, and by using promo code BELLYUP, you will get 15% off your purchase at righteousfelon.com. Do your taste buds a favor today and rip into a bag of Righteous Felon jerky.
Round one of the MLS Cup Playoffs is over. No more best of three. Now it's one game, single elimination from here on out. So, once again, yes, no one likes this format. I want to predicate that again because I feel like some people just think that all MLS supporters like this format. Most people do not. It's kind of dumb, and now even more dumb. We have a break during the international break. So, and that's one of my gripes as well because, like, a team that had, like, a huge significant win now has to they kind of cool down now because they go through the international break and then they start again with, it's almost like a fresh start for both teams. So that could also be fair, but it sucks when you're a team that's maybe considered an underdog who came off of a big victory and now they have to kind of just, all right, clean slate, I guess, but we'll see what happens, man. I do think eventually this is going to change. I don't know if it's going to be next season. I'm still intrigued what next season is going to happen because if you're going to switch into a fall-spring calendar versus a spring-fall calendar like they've always had, you're going to have to do something in the springtime, at least like a shortened season, and then have that full season happen, come fall. But that's going to be something where we talk about when we get closer down to that part of the season for MLS. But we're close to having an MLS Cup champion, and I can't wait for that part at least. So, we're going to start off with the Eastern Conference, and the first one we're going to talk about is Philadelphia taking care of business. They swept Chicago Fire in 2 games, obviously because it's best of 3, so it sounds dumb to call it a sweep, but it technically is a sweep. Philadelphia, once again, are just one of the better teams in MLS, are Supporters' Shield winners. A good combination of attack and defense. They've done really well all season long, and props to Chicago Fire for putting up a good fight. But I just never saw it. But I will say, Greg Berhalter, man, for you to get eliminated, which still, I think if you're a Chicago Fire fan, you should be very much proud of this team. Like, they've exceeded expectations. I don't think anybody expected them to be where they were, and I think that at this point they were playing with house money, right? Like, they were doing fairly well for themselves. Like, you can't call this year a bust because, once again, no one expected you to be here. And then I'm sure there was still hesitancy when Greg Berhalter was hired as the manager of this team. And they have looked great. They look strong. Maybe add a few more pieces come next season, and maybe this team is poised for an interesting run in MLS Cup. But you had a hard start to this first round, which was going up against legitimately the best team in MLS this season. And so, yes, the Supporters' Shield curse is still very much a thing. Do I think it's going to happen? I don't know, man. This Philadelphia team makes me feel so differently about them that maybe they're the team that breaks the curse, but you never know who you go up against because that could be a massive change. Now, so Philadelphia, Chicago, I think it kind of went how I expected it to go. But I think Chicago did a really good job. I think they put up a really good fight. It just, once again, it just wasn't in the cards for them, man. It just wasn't. It wasn't their day. All right, the next matchup is NYCFC beating Charlotte. This was one of the more interesting series because it wasn't the home field advantage that helped. It was the teams on the road. This was the road dog series, as the road teams were the ones winning. But NYCFC, like, as some people were very hesitant on this team, not necessarily that they were going to be in the playoffs. I think everyone knew they were going to be in the playoffs. I think it's just everyone's had a higher expectation of Charlotte, especially when you already had a very good defensive team, and then you added Wilfred Zaha. You think that this team is going to do some real damage this season, maybe go on a further run, so the expectation is a little bit higher for Charlotte, but they were just not it this round, man. In all 3 of them, in my opinion, they were not as great as I hoped them to be on the attacking end. And NYCFC was just clearly in the moments were just more impactful. And I think that that is what matters in the playoffs at this point. So, like, even you could be good consistent. And also, the 4 and 5th matchup, I always say it's going to be a closer one. And it really was. I had a lot of fun watching it. I love the fact that the road teams were the winners in all 3 of these matches. But, for Charlotte, I mean, they had to go to pens to move on. And that's why they were able to move on. This time around, it just didn't help them. They needed to score goals, and they didn't. That's why they're not going on, and NYCFC is. And now people are looking like maybe this team can put up a good fight against Philadelphia. We'll see what happens. I think it's going to still be a challenge for them. It's Philadelphia, but it's going to be an interesting matchup nonetheless. But we'll get more into that matchup as we move on. But the next one, Inter Miami beating Nashville SC. This was looking like it's going to happen again, but Miami made it be known. They learned their mistakes from last year, and they're not going to let it happen again. And they took care of business, and without Luis Suarez. Nashville, great run. I know if you guys have been watching me on Goals TV, you know that this was basically my championship DVD team, the team that I was going to ride with and see if they could go far. I think they did fairly well for them this year. Obviously won the U.S. Open Cup, but it's Miami, bro. It's Messi and friends. And like I said, I think they learned a lot from their mistakes of last year, and they're taking it very seriously this go about, which could be very dangerous for all the other teams in the MLS Cup, that this team is more locked in than they've been before, especially the way they played in that Game 3. So Miami means business, man. And I think if a team can benefit from having that break for the international break, it's probably Miami. They get to rest their players because they are on a lot of older legs. Like, this team could definitely benefit from the break, and if they come in refreshed going into that matchup with Cincinnati, I mean, with Messi, there's never a doubt. But yeah, that's Inter Miami and Nashville. Nashville, I don't think this is the last we'll see of Nashville. I think Nashville's going to be really good. I think they're going to make some big changes to make this team even better, and I hope that they can follow through, man. I like watching Nashville. I think they bring up a good team. I think BJ Callahan is such a great manager for MLS, and I think that this needs to keep going, man, for this team. FC Cincinnati and Columbus, Hell's Real Derby. We got 3 games of Hell's Real Derby, and I enjoyed them thoroughly. And yeah, FC Cincinnati was very much one of the best teams in MLS this year, and they let that be known. Columbus, I think once again you try to factor in Wilfred Nancy. You want to factor in as he's one of the best coaches in MLS, and the reality is I just think that they suffered from not having like a real 9. I think that that's one of the things that really killed them. But like I said, this team was still, regardless of not having a 9, they played really well. And on top of that, for Darlington Nagbe, who basically this was his last match as a Columbus Crew player, what a send-off, man. The man won everywhere he played at, and, can't wait for his retirement. I don't know what he's going to do, but I can't wait for Darlington Nagbe for his future. But, yeah, FC Cincinnati handled their own, and they're moving on into the Western Conference semifinals, or the quarterfinals, if you want to look at it like that, if you don't want to use all those weird labels like Western Conference Finals, Western Conference Semifinals, all that crap. But, all right, going to the West, and San Diego beats Portland 2-1 in the series. I think Portland put up a good fight. I think Portland showed that they are not this joke of a team that everyone's been trying to say that they are. But San Diego was just better. And I mean, that Game 3 just proved that they were just better than Portland. And they handled their business, and they did what they needed to do. I think, once again, it's a daunting task to tell a team to go into Portland and play well. Once again, Portland's one of the stronger fronts in MLS, especially in a playoff atmosphere. And I think that they did not I didn't oversell that. I think that the home field was definitely strong, and that was the reason why they were able to force a Game 3. But once again, San Diego is just levels on levels. It's really interesting to see them do this. I think that they're going full send, and I think that it's going to be interesting to see how they continue on in this MLS Cup playoffs. In the next matchup, we have Minnesota United beating the Seattle Sounders, also going to a Game 3. And yeah, this series was great. Once again, 4-5 is always going to be a good matchup. I'm just going to keep telling y'all that they're just going to be the most even matchup, and it was very fun to watch how they played. Seattle put in a strong fight, but I mean, at the end of the day, I don't know, man. Like, you kind of question Minnesota a little bit, but once again, you do what you need to do, which win games. But I mean, maybe you have some question marks as they're going to the next round because they just weren't able to win in regulation time. They had to go to penalties to advance. But I will say, if they can play hard enough throughout the 90 minutes plus and get to a penalty situation, you feel like they think that they have a good shot at going far. But the question is, will that be enough for them? Can they compete for a full 90 to force those penalties? Because, like I said, when they were in Seattle, it was a completely different story. So, and they're back on the road, so we'll see what happens there. I can't wait to see. I'm like kind of hesitant. I did think Seattle would probably made a better team, but at the end of the day, you play who you play and you move on. If you don't win, you don't win, and that's what happened for Seattle. And Minnesota moves on, right? And then the next two matches, they both were sweeps. I think that's the reason why I kind of like this one, man. Like, only 3 games ended in sweeps, which was 2 wins, right? It went to 2 games. But I'm also glad that these next 2 went to 2 games because LAFC beat Austin FC in a sweep. They just beat them. They didn't care, just beat them. And what's even funnier was that game 2 was a 4-1 beating. Like, the 2-1 game, like, everyone was like, I think Austin might put a good fight. And I'm just like, bro, it's Austin. It's Austin. They don't score. They can defend, but they don't score. And the 2-1 win was a good one for LAFC, but I think when they really opened it up with the 4-1 victory, and you got to say, confidence is definitely probably on their side after that. But, you know, they are on the road now at this point. So we'll see if they can be road dogs, which, I mean, they did prove they could do it on the road as they beat Austin. But they do have a significant longer break, but it doesn't really matter because the other matchup also went to 2 games, which was Vancouver Whitecaps beating FC Dallas in obviously in a sweep. And once again, Vancouver is just one of the better teams in MLS. Even though the second game did go to pens, I just think that that's just kind of more of props to the fight that FC Dallas had. But they did end up winning in penalties. Vancouver, once again, is, to me, in my opinion, the most balanced team in MLS. They have an amazing attack, and I think they have like the best attack and best defense. Maybe they're at least like one of the top teams in attack and one of the top teams in defense. So they are very dangerous. I think that they're right now, to me, the odds-on favorite to win MLS Cup because of just how complete they are on all facets of the game. But, you know, anything can happen, man, when it comes down to it. But, you know, like I said, for Vancouver, it's just an interesting story for them going all that they've gone through, especially with the potential of their team being sold to now here they are, one of the best teams in MLS. So I think that that's still very commendable for this team, and I hope that they do go far. I'm rooting for this team, man. I'm pulling for them because, you know, this team did make it to the final of the CONCACAF Champions Cup, and it'd be a real shame if this team doesn't win anything this season. And so we'll see what happens if we're going to see them on December 6th. But all right, conference semifinals or quarterfinals if you really want to go there. So the quarterfinals matches will start at the East once again. The first game is first place Philadelphia Union taking on 5th place NYCFC. It is, once again, it's going to be at Philly. The matchup is going to be a big one. I think both teams are really good. Both teams are very capable of taking shots. But I think at the end of the day, it's that Philadelphia defense. They are one of, like I said, MLS Cup Supporter Shields, but they are one of the most complete teams in MLS. So that's going to be really the task that NYCFC has. Can they keep up with this? Can they keep up with this Philadelphia team? And I think that's where I have my doubts with them. I think that they have done very well for themselves, but I think this might be the end of the road. And I think I am being boring. I am being boring and picking the best team. But I think that is what it comes down to. I think how they play They play solid defensively, and they play solid on the attack. Like it's kind of hard to find a weak spot on this team. So Philadelphia is very much why there's a reason why the Supporters Shield winners. I don't think the Supporters Shield curse comes into play just yet, or if it even happens at all. I think that they're really good this year. It's just going to be daunting to see who can beat this team. Though I will say, in the Eastern Conference, there is two other teams that I do believe can beat Philadelphia, but NYCFC isn't one of those teams. So I'm going to have Philadelphia move on to the semifinals. And then the other matchup in the Eastern Conference, it is FC Cincinnati taking on Inter Miami. And yeah, man, Cincinnati has been solid. Evander has been a very big upgrade since losing Lucho Acosta, and they have just been strong nonetheless. And they know how to win at home. They have a strong home front, and you want to hope that that's going to be enough to go against Miami. Now, I will point out that Miami does come in flocks, and they come in flocks for sure. Can we see some people swapping their FC Cincinnati kit for a Messi kit? I hope not. I hope that there's going to be a lot of Messi hate because this guy is going to play against your team. But that's where it's going to be interesting now, because now it's one-off game, so people, the Messi fans are going to do all they can to make sure that they're going to be present at those games to see Messi potentially win an MLS Cup. So, dang, does home field become a factor? Is home field going to be a factor for FC Cincinnati? That is an interesting question to have. And unfortunately, I think Miami does win. I think Miami's going to be... One, Miami's players are going to be rested. I think if anybody benefits from this break, it's Miami. Their main players are very much older, so for them to get enough rest and go into this matchup against FC Cincinnati, and that's the other scary thing. You're giving guys that are so seasoned time to prepare for FC Cincinnati. I think that that's very dangerous. I think Miami, if any team benefits from the break that's going to happen because of the international break, and I mean Messi's over at Barcelona right now, so I know they're not training or anything, but once again, when he comes back, he's getting locked in. He's watching film. He's going to see what he can expose from this FC Cincinnati team. You're giving this team time to be rested, to heal whatever they need to heal, and go in as strong as they humanly can against FC Cincinnati. And that is that's what makes me feel like that they're going to benefit from this. So give me Inter Miami. I know all the Messi haters are hating me for doing that, but I'm going to say Inter Miami makes it to the semifinals to take on the Philadelphia Union, which should be a really good matchup if that happens. And I know that I picked the first seed and now I'm picking the third seed. I will say though, it's kind of not. I think a lot of people. I'm sure people are going to be saying, "It's Messi. He's better than MLS, and like he should win the MLS Cup because he's the best. He's Messi. He's the GOAT." I get all those things, but he hasn't won an MLS Cup yet. But he might. All right, moving on from the East, going to the West. We have San Diego taking on Minnesota United. San Diego looks good. And I think, once again, it's just a question of when is their inexperience going to become a factor? Not this game. I think Minnesota, while they are a weird team and can be frisky at times, I'm just not sold from them from this first round. I'm not sold by their victories. Honestly, the 3-3 draw, cool. But at the same time, I'm still not sold. I'm still not sold by this Minnesota team. I think San Diego is very much better than Minnesota, and you're going into Snapdragon, which is a strong front. Yeah, I'm just not sold on Minnesota United. I'm just not, and I like San Diego. I like a lot of this team. I like how they play. I like how tenacious they are. Dreyer is just an amazing player. Should be considered for MVP, but it's probably going to be Messi. I just think that this team is just levels above Minnesota. I'm just not sold. I'm not sold on Minnesota, which is unfortunate because Minnesota is a fun team to me, but I'm not at all confident for them to go against San Diego. So I'm gonna pick San Diego to move on. Yes, once again, boring pick, first place team, but I get it, and I also get it. But I mean, all the top seeds are like the upper half of the seeds are moving on. The only team that's not an upper half of the seeds was NYCFC, and they're 5th place. So take that with a grain of salt. All right, but the last matchup, the last quarterfinal matchup, it is 2nd place Vancouver Whitecaps taking on 3rd place LAFC. I think this is the best matchup of all of these matches. I think that this is very much can go either way. I can see LAFC go into Vancouver, which, by the way, I have argued that is one of the hardest stadiums to play in. Vancouver is just a really weird stadium. I don't know why, but it's tough to win on the road. LAFC has been able to do it. And also, once again, you have Heung-min Son, Denny Boanga. They have a really good team. But this Vancouver team is so fun defensively. They're so fun on the attack. And they also have Thomas Mueller. You have, obviously, Sebastian Berhalter. You have Blackman. You have you could just list all the players. Brian White. Like, they're a really good team. And I'm pulling for them. I'm not going to lie. I'm biased here. I kind of want Vancouver to win this thing. But I can also see LAFC get one under them, pull the rug on them, and move on to the next round, which I can see happen. But I'm gonna go with Vancouver. I think Vancouver moves on. I think that they're built for playoffs. I mean, look how they did to make it to the league, to the CONCACAF Champions Cup final. Yes, they got destroyed by Cruz Azul, but still, they got to the final nonetheless. I think that they are very much built for playoffs, and I would love to see this team make it to the final. And yeah, I think Vancouver's a fun team, and I hope it continues, man. So those are my picks. I'm going to say, once again, the semifinal matches, we're going to have Philadelphia against Miami. That's my prediction. And we're going to have San Diego take on Vancouver Whitecaps for the Western Conference. But it's anyone's game, man. I can't wait. I think that this is where things get kind of interesting. Can we see some shakeups? I hope so. I kind of, in some way, picked all the home teams win. And you could kind of say Miami just because, once again, you're going to see a lot of Messi fans go to that stadium. But I hope that we're going to see a strong front for FC Cincinnati as well. So that is my prediction right now.
Who is that guy?